Hi, we're Sister Goals, and we're here today to talk to you about the next three books that we've read in our Rory Gilmore Book Club Challenge. Join us as we talk about what we've read. Hi, I'm Megan, and this is Rebecca. Today we're going to be talking about books 12 through 14 of our Rory Gilmore Book Club Challenge. The first one we're going to talk about today is Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. This is a story about a young bomber named Algernon who finds himself stuck in a bureaucracy as the numbers of mission he needs to fly keep increasing in order for him to be able to return home. While trying to find a way out of this, he discovers the now famous phrase, the catch-22. A man is considered insane if he is willingly able to fly dangerous combat missions, but if he makes a formal request to be removed from duty, he is proven sane and therefore ineligible to be relieved. So this is where that phrase catch-22 comes from. And what do you think, Rebecca?
Well, I did appreciate because how do I say this? Like, I do appreciate quite early on they explained the catch-22 because I didn't know anything in regards to this book at all. I did no research ahead of time. I would say this was a bit of a challenging book for me because at first I thought it started off in a mental hospital, and then I kept reading and I was like, I don't think he's in a mental hospital. I think he's just in an army hospital. And so I had to kind of restart reading because I got like super confused at the beginning, the way the book started. The man just has some bad luck, some very bad luck. Is it my favorite book? No, I'm not gonna lie. This is not something that really thrilled me. It actually took quite a while to get through. I got through it. I probably only finished it because of book club, which I mean, I'm thankful for. At least I'm reading a classic. I know it's very popular. It's been around a really long time. There's quite a few people that obviously like it because it's done very well for itself. But for myself, it was just not my cup of tea. The guy has really bad luck. And I think maybe it's just the whole, reading the war scenes are hard. It's not a pretty book in regards to some of the things that happen to him, to villagers, being pillaged and shot at, and it's war, which, I mean, I guess it's the rawness of war, but it just wasn't my favorite. I think it could be good for someone that likes wartime books. I think this would be a great book for them, especially if you have a relative or anyone that you're giving a gift, if that's like something they're very much into. Just for myself, it was not my favorite. How about you, Megan?
I would agree. I really had trouble connecting with this one with the main character. For whatever reason, I could not get in the mind state of the characters. How frustrated he was, and which it makes total sense, but I had a really hard time connecting with him, and I feel like I probably should have been able to do that a little bit better. I will say that there is a mini series on Hulu, and for whatever reason, that show was able to just really bring the book back together with me and really connect the story. So I would highly recommend that. I believe it's about 6 to 8 episodes, but for some reason, that was the one that got me to understand the frustrations that this character would have felt put in this scenario. So not sure why I wasn't able to connect with him because it is pretty awful what's happening to him. I'm just not sure where I missed that connection, but I would agree. I really struggled with this book.
Do you think if you had watched the Hulu series first and then read the book, would it have been easier, or do you think it still would have been challenging through the novel?
It might have been easier just because at the beginning, the book goes into depth on like certain characters, and I really had a hard time bringing them all together, at about halfway through the book. Like you kind of get to see how they're all connected with one another versus the video or the mini series was able to really just show you all of them in this like connected way. So maybe that's where it fell a little short for me. Yeah, it probably would have been helpful to look at the video. However, my husband watched the series and he did not read the book. He was also a little bit confused right at the beginning of the series. So maybe it's just being patient with the storyline. Definitely very, very interesting, like once you wrap your head around certain aspects of it. But yeah, a challenge, unfortunately. So would you recommend it? We say no.
I guess it's one of those circumstances where it would depend on the person. For myself, and no one that I can think of in my head right now that I would probably offer this into. But if I had a friend that was really into avid horror books, or maybe more gore and political aspects of it, I maybe would offer it to them. But on average, for myself, and most directly, probably a no.
Yeah. So next we're going to pivot. We're going to do a complete 180. We're going to talk about Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I think it would be the exact opposite of this. This is a semi-autobiographical account of four sisters' domestic lives during the Civil War. So now you're looking at what women experienced during that time. Readers, you're just apt to fall in love with the comings and goings of four sisters, Jo, Beth, Meg, and Amy. Rebecca, what did you think?
I loved it. I mean, let's just be honest. I have seen, so this is my first time reading the book. I have never read the book myself, but I have seen all the multiple adaptations that Hollywood has done through the years, even like the 1949 version of the original. I actually rewatched it with Megan after we read this book because I was like, let's watch it. I think what's really interesting is I think what you've enjoyed on some of the other books is just the raw life of it. You know, it's really showing everyday life, a family that's not doing so well off, but then about how they overcome their struggles, what's going on with their father, the disagreements with their aunt, you know, trying to move in a society where, you know, is a little bit more well off, but maybe they're on the bottom of that tier. And, you know, the temptations of life, and how, what was interesting, it really gets into the characters' nitty gritty with their relationships with significant others. Meg, the oldest, you know, a lot of things that I enjoyed about the book is the detail, which I mean is most books compared to movies or shows. It's just the detail. I really felt that Meg was brought to a new light in regards to her relationship with her husband, John, and their two kids. And it really kind of describes the struggle that she had with that marriage at first and kind of becoming a mother, which I find it really easy to connect with, you know, now being a mother myself. So I thought that was a really fascinating thing that was never really shown before. And kind of coming to terms with a wife and husband relationship. I really appreciated the aspect of Amy in the book. I think in all the video versions, I just saw Amy as very shallow and just not very much depth to her. But when you get into the book, there's so much depth into what she's doing. Is she's really like going like for her family. She's thinking for her family, how can I help my family? And it's a lot more selfless than at first that you think it is. And then Jo, I feel Jo is a very captivating character. I did appreciate her portrayal, but I thought her portrayal in the movies and in the book is very similar. So I don't think there was much change there. Beth, a little bit more on Beth, which was nice. You know, Beth, I think sadly just doesn't get a huge role inside of the book. You know, she is a very content child and young woman, and you know, we just see the beauty of her simplicity. But I really loved the book. I love this storyline, and as a woman, I just really appreciated getting into more of the depth of, if I had read this book when I was a teenager to now, it'd be very different. My thought process might be less concerned about Meg, but I loved hearing the whole Meg part this time because I'm older. How about you, Megan?
Yes, I definitely connected with Meg as well this time, which I thought was interesting. I would have thought of myself as maybe more of a Jo person or a Beth person, but this time, yes, just watching a young mother come into the story as she's developing her family, that was interesting to me at that point in my life that I'm in. I also was really interested this time as I read this. The book has a lot of moral messages, so I wasn't expecting that because it was pretty over. It was pretty obvious what either Marmee was trying to say, or pretty much was Marmee, right? The mother of these girls gives them these life lessons, and it is so clear what she's trying to tell them throughout the book. And I don't know, you just hear typically in books, you're not supposed to scold the reader or, you know, give them moral lessons, like they're supposed to figure it out for themselves. In this was just right there in your face. You're learning, this is how you're selfless. This is how you're supposed to be a good person. This is how you're supposed to be a good mother. You know, I mean, they just spell it out for you. And I thought that was really interesting. That's not something you typically see in the movies. It was pretty constant theme throughout the book, I would say. And I was like, oh, here's some life advice. Thanks, Marmee. I appreciate that. So, yeah, that's interesting. I like it. I'm surprised it's actually made as a children's book. So I don't know. I never read it as a kid. Do you think kids would enjoy it, Becca?
Maybe if you hit like the middle school range.
Yeah, maybe there.
Maybe I think it would be a little challenging for a high schooler necessarily to appreciate it in the same way, but I think maybe if you hit a middle schooler, maybe elementary might be too young.
It's interesting. So we are going to go in a totally opposite direction again these books are all over the place that we're reading today. Next, we're going to be talking about Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. This is a book about Charlie Gordon, who is a man with severe mental disabilities who partakes in a scientific experiment. He undergoes brain surgery to increase his intelligence and then journals his experience. His experience is paralleled with a mouse called Algernon that they originally did this experiment on. So it kind of follows going what's happening with the mouse, what's happening with Charlie Gordon. What did you think, Becca?
So this particular book, Flowers of Algernon, is not necessarily a book I would have picked up on my own. So I am thankful that, you know, this challenge is making me read definitely outside of what I would normally read. I think it was a good book. It's challenging to read because it's sad. It's happy, and then you get all excited, and then it's just really devastating. And I think sometimes it can be challenging for me with the brain concept that he goes through. I guess it's the growth. You see some people being very mean to him and taking advantage of him, and then, you know, lo and behold, the surgery does work to a certain degree for a period of time, and you as a reader get to go along with it. And there are times when he starts to realize people aren't so nice and people are nice, and then it's really challenging, and it makes you wonder, how our society today, if this were to happen, what would the person see? What would they observe? I liked the book. I don't necessarily think, is it one I'm going to read again? No, but it was really well written. So I think it was really well done. I think it is a classic for a reason. Makes you definitely see, like, if you were to have the surgery, would you want the surgery? Was he better off pre-surgery, or was he better off after, knowing what had happened? I don't know.
This is just a book. If you want to get into moral questions, into moral ethics, like, this is the book for you, just to explore that, because it is really fascinating to see how his life changes, how you realize he's happy, but then, you know, people are being mean to him, but he's happy because he doesn't realize people are being mean to him. But then once he becomes aware of what's going on, it shifts these dynamics in the relationship, but then he feels lonely. So there's like so many questions that you can analyze and wonder as a reader, just being like, where does it fall in this spectrum of morality and ethics? Where do people lie, and at what point can you be your happiest, and what does it take to acquire that? Is friendship important? Is being smart important? Is their balance between the two? I don't know. You will have so many questions after you read this book. I loved it. I listened to it on an audiobook during a very long road trip, so it really engaged me that time. I did not read it through a book, but listen to it. And the narrator was fantastic. I got into it. It's tough because of the questions it's going to force you to ask yourself and to examine, but definitely worth it, I think, to read that.
I think just as people, it's important for us to keep growing and to keep thinking and maybe try and imagine ourselves in someone else's place. Like, what would you do? And I that's what I like about this book too. It really makes you question, like, what do I believe in? What do I think is right? What's wrong? How could I see it from their perspective? And then this person's perspective, like, which one was right? And were they both right or were they both wrong? And yeah, it's definitely a very dynamic story. I highly recommend it as well. I think it is a very good book to make you just internally look at yourself, like help yourself grow, which I mean, there's never a wrong time to learn and change and maybe see new viewpoints. So I love it. But we just wanted to say thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We are Sister Goals. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Have a wonderful day. Bye.